Please join me as I ring the Tibetan bell as a call to service. Listening as the sound fills the sanctuary, uniting mind and body and spirit. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our members and our friends and our visitors to the Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River, a church that is relevant in our lives, active in the world, and grounded in love and justice. Perhaps you join us this morning seeking community and the joy of familiar faces. Perhaps you're seeking comfort after a difficult week. or perhaps a deepening spirituality. Wherever you are on your life's path, we welcome you this morning. My name is Annie Lavin, your service leader, and we were looking so much for welcoming Reverend Kimberly DeBus this morning. She is ill and has fever and cold, and we wish her a very speedy recovery and looking forward to her coming back to the pulpit perhaps in the months ahead. Her talk is on the sense of beauty, and she has emailed it to me. We are grateful to our accompanist and our musician, Michael Casey. Now I'm going to just pause here and say a few more words. Michael hasn't been with us so long that we might all know of his background and accomplishments. I encourage you to take a couple minutes and look at some of the articles in the Kent County News and elsewhere about him. In a sentence or two, Michael has trained with, played with, and continues to grow his talent as a pianist and vocalist with well-known artists, and participates in competitions and recitals in the United States and abroad. Last evening, he accompanied the Broadway performers at the Garfield Gala and is here this morning early. Thanks for that quick transition. And thank you for adding so much, giving of your talents to our services on Sunday. I have a few announcements. Today after service, enjoy your coffee and then come back to the sanctuary. We need a quorum to vote on the two proposals regarding the paved walkway down to the Memorial Garden. And next Sunday, just put a star on Sunday. You need to be with us because lots is going on here at UUCR. First of all, at 10 o'clock, we have Reverend Sue and T-shirt Sunday. It's going to be a special occasion, read reflections or talk to somebody. Afterwards, we're going to have a listening session about Doris Scott's bequest to UUCR. And then at 5 o'clock, we're going to have the sock burning, the traditional sock burning ceremony with the spring equinox. If you're confused about sock burning, don't be. We all are a little bit, but somebody's got the history. And it's a lot of fun down at the Memorial Garden, and then we're going to have the potluck afterwards. So next Sunday, be here. And now, let us begin. The chalice lighting words are in your order of service, and we can say them together. Recognizing the beauty around us and within us, in voice and spirit, we gather to light our chalice. May we savor the beauty of our abundance and diversity, always cherishing each other and our earth. May we remember to inhale the lusciousness of life, knowing that we are a people of beauty. And opening words. You know, babies and very young children tend to get it right. They see beauty in far more than we, I'm suspecting. Think how beautiful we grandparents must be in their eyes to elicit the smiles and outstretched arms. We who are not typically held to such a standard of beauty by our judgmental world. What these little ones see is something else, beyond and much deeper than the physical. Perhaps, as the poet David White says, a loving face in which they see their own self reflected and know it to be beauty. But alas, as time passes, children too can succumb to society's oh so narrow determination of beauty. I came across the following poem as an example of this. A teary little girl says, I came in fourth in the beauty contest. Please let me cry a minute. I came in fourth in the beauty contest. I was so sure I'd win it. They can keep their ribbon that says fourth place, and I don't care where they pin it. I came in fourth in the beauty contest, and there were just 3 of us in it. On the surface, it brings a smile, but there's a sadness too, because it shows how she's already learned to walk through life with blinders on, like so many of us, not realizing that we are part and parcel of life's beauty. It runs through us, it's woven around us, calling us, holding us, connecting us. And guess what? First place prize will go to those of us who can recognize and act on and celebrate beauty in each of life's moments. Our first hymn this morning is number 21, For the Beauty of This Earth. Please stand as you are able. In your order of service, there is an insert for our unison reading this morning. It's entitled Nurturing Beauty by Reverend Lynch. And we can say this together. Our community is filled with beauty. When you open the door with greeting, that's where beauty begins. When you share with me what's important to you, beauty is there as others. When we join hands to practice compassion, beauty's heart blooms like a flower. When we teach or learn or work for justice, beauty abounding sparks joy in all. Let us be mindful of the beauty we seek, the beauty we share, the beauty we nurture together. And now's the time for acknowledgments of the heart, that special time in the service when we share joys and concerns. If you will come forward and you can use this mic, and I will light the candle. The first candle I'll light for all those who are suffering in body and mind or spirit this morning, that they might find peace and joy and love.
Well, I'd like this candle to be from all of us, for Jane Harding, who went through serious surgery 2 weeks ago. I guess she's home, and we hold her in our caring thoughts. thoughts.
Thank you.
I light the final candle for those joys and sorrows that are in our hearts that are unspoken. Let's have a moment to reflect on this. Blessed be. Now we'll pass the basket to this place which is special to so many of us, a place of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the throne. And now, I invite you into a time of reflection, a time of centering. Please join me as we settle. Take some time, take a breath. Rest your mind from all that awaits you when you leave. And listen to these words of Tess Baumberger. And she says, wouldn't it be great if you could take a picture of your soul? Then when your mother wanted to brag about you, she could show people the picture and say, that's my daughter. Doesn't she have a beautiful soul? All sparkly and many-colored and flowing all around her. Wouldn't it be great if we walked around surrounded by our souls so that they were the first thing people saw instead of the last thing? Then people would see us for who we really are instead of how we look. Imagine no more racism, ageism, sexism, fatism, shortism, homophobia. Imagine falling in love with who a person is just by looking at them and seeing the beauty of their soul. These words make me think a bit and smile, and yes, it would be interesting, but you know, it's not really needed. I think you'll agree that we pay attention to life as we do this. We learn early on that a body need not hide a person's goodness or perhaps their soul. For that light, that energy can shine in our ideas, our actions, our involvement with the world, our very presence in it. Let us take a moment to reflect on the beauty that is you, yours alone, and how you project it into the world. Blessed be. From here we go to a reading from Reverend Kimberly. Nancy has agreed to read it to you, and then we'll follow it by the sermon. It's written, it quotes quite a bit of David White, and it's entitled Beauty.
Beauty is the harvest of presence, the evanescent moment of seeing or hearing on the outside what already lives far inside us. The eyes, the ears of the imagination suddenly become a bridge between the here and there, between the then and now, between inside and outside. Beauty is the conversation between what we think is happening in the world and what is just about to come to harvest far inside us. Beauty is an achieved state of both deep attention and self-forgetting. The self-forgetting of seeing, hearing, smelling, or touching that erases our separation, our distance, our fear of the other. Beauty invites us through entrancement to that fearful frontier between what we think makes us and what we think makes the world. Beauty is almost always found in symmetries. The symmetries seen out in creation, the wings of the moth, the airy sky and the solid earth, the restful, focused eyes of a loving face in which we see our own self reflected. The symmetry also, therefore, of bringing together inner and outer recognitions, the far horizons of otherness seen in that face joined to the deep inner horizons of our own being. Beauty is an inner and an outer complexion living in one's face. Beauty especially occurs in the meeting of time with the timeless, the passing moment framed by what has happened and what is about to occur. The scattering of the first spring apple blossom, the turning, spiraling flight of curled leaf in the falling light, the smoothing of white sun-filled sheets by careful hands setting them upon a line to dry. The broad expanse of cotton filled by the breeze for a moment, the sheets sailing on into dryness, billowing toward a future that is always beckoning, always just beyond us. Beauty is the harvest of presence.
Thank you, Nancy. So this is entitled A Sense of Beauty by Reverend Kimberly. When we think of beauty, we often turn to nature to experience this beautiful planet and all that lives on it, to immerse in the beauty that emerges when we take a moment to notice, to sense the world around us. But beauty isn't just nature. Beauty, and our sense of it, is deeper, bigger, almost too intangible to define. The philosopher George Santayana tried to define it back in 1898 and spilled a lot of ink trying. Santayana focused on the aesthetics of beauty and endeavored to separate it from psychology and religion, poorly in my opinion. Yet along the way, he landed on this definition written in the gendered language of his day. Beauty is a value, that is, not a perception of a matter of fact or relation. It is an emotion, an affectation of our volitional and appreciative nature. An object cannot be beautiful if it can give pleasure to nobody. A beauty in which all men were forever indifferent is a contradiction in terms. This value is positive. It is the sense of the presence of something good, or its absence. So, something is beautiful if we appreciate it, if it appeals to us. That probably explains why beauty is so subjective. At least that beauty we sense with our eyes, ears, tongue, hands, and nose. I think a well-executed Jackson Pollock painting is beautiful. Others turn from its chaos. A friend thinks the sense of olives, the taste of olives, is uniquely beautiful. I think they're an apparition onto my tongue. It may also explain why capitalism has worked so hard to tell us what beauty is. If we all agree, then we're all going to buy the same products, which sets up expectations, especially around body image, which is a topic for another day. But even as we accept that we do not take in beauty and judge beauty by those five senses, we know there's more than just how it appeals to us. I think our sense of beauty goes deeper. As White says, it is about a moment, the first bloom, the perfect phrase, the exquisite lyric, the taste that takes your breath away. We long to savor them because they're perfect for a moment. They're beautiful for a moment. And we know that they are fleeting. And if we expand to the other 49 senses, yes, I said 49, there is a total of 54, according to eco-psychologist Michael Cohen. We discover other kinds of beauty. Let's take a short tour of these senses. I invite you to hold an object near you. Anything at all. Reverend Kimberly says it could be a hymnal or your phone or anything you want to hold on to. And just hold it in your hands and we'll go through these new senses that I hadn't known about. When you have something that you're seeing, that you're observing, look carefully at it through the radiation senses, the sense of light and shadow, temperature and color. Notice moods or other identities attached to the colors and shadows. Now, observe it through the feeling senses. What does it feel like to the skin? Its weight and gravity and balance, your sense of its proximity and space, and any sense of motion or mobility. Next, observe it through the chemical senses, the smell and only as appropriate taste. Consider the object's relationship to humidity, to moistness, to hunger and thirst, to other hormonal reactions. Next, consider the senses of form and design, reason and logic, curiosity, drama and time. Next, observe it through the mental senses. What comes up in your interaction? Is there any sense of pain or distress, fear or dread? What about a sense of play or pleasure, a sense of emotional connection, belonging, or gratitude? Notice a sense of self, whether compassion, inward focus, power, or friendship. Observe spiritual senses of sorrow and joy, love, sin, ecstasy, sacrifice, assurance. Now you can sense its beauty. Those qualities that might make this object you are observing beautiful. Suddenly now, we begin to sense how expansive beauty can be. It's not just our sight or a sound, it's also texture or a form or a connection or a feeling. We sense beauty. It gives us pleasure, it appeals to us, and has value and qualities that make it appealing. We don't need to know why it appeals to our sense of beauty. To feel beauty is a better thing than to understand how we come to feel it. And still, that isn't everything. What if our sense of beauty wasn't just about the many ways we sense it and feel it, but also about what it means to us? Can we make meaning out of beauty? Can we discern our work in the world through beauty? What if our sense of beauty led to something more? Holy. In sermons on universalism, I like to use the example from Hasia Bello that he offered to explain how God's love and universal salvation work. Bello asks us to consider the child who falls into the mud. Of course you clean them, but do you love the child because you clean them? Or do you clean them because you love them? Now, is something beautiful only because that it's cleaned and made presentable? Or do you see the potential underneath the grime, underneath the trauma, underneath the oppression, underneath the poverty, underneath all that keeps that child from shining, all that keeps the world's mud caked onto them? Now, you might argue that it's empathy or compassion that leads you there, and you wouldn't be wrong. But I wonder if it is our sense of beauty that helps us to be empathetic and compassionate, that we sense the beauty of a human being, of a gentle tear, of a soul crying for solace, a body aching for healing, and more. I wonder if it is our sense of beauty that sparks hope. Now, I'm wandering through some thoughts here. Join me in this exploration because I think something's here that we have taken for granted. I suspect that a sense of deep, below the surface beauty, as subjective and as volatile as it is actually the driving force for our work in the world. If we were a Christian church, I'd suggest that it's the thing in us that remembers the beauty of the unfallen Garden of Eden and the driving force to make the will of God on earth as it is in heaven manifest. But maybe that's not far off. If instead of thinking about a perfect garden that we lost when Adam and Eve were banished from the garden for eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, what if we think about it like this? We can imagine the beloved community. What things would be like if we managed to love the hell out of this world? Drew the circle of love so wide, we didn't need a circle anymore. We can imagine, as John Lennon suggests, all the people living a life of peace. Maybe that's the new earth we long for. And that's not a bad way to understand our sense of beauty. We can harness it as the driver of our hope for a better future. That thing that compels us, the glimmer, the moment that makes our world worthwhile. A couple of examples. The first is thinking about something Mother Teresa said in her work. She noted that wherever she went, no matter how heartbreaking the conditions, the filth, the poverty, the desolation, the starvation, she always went in with a smile. She smiled at them, with them. Her smile stamped dignity on their personhood, offered a glimpse of beauty, which portends hope. The second example is a bit longer to tell, and it's about how in the closing years of the Cold War, the nation of Estonia was able to win their independence from the USSR, thus starting the mass exodus and the crumbling of the Soviet Union. This small Baltic country had a massive culture of singing in families, in schools, in churches, but also in the streets, in organizations, in pubs. Anywhere people gather, they sing. Estonia has the largest collection of folk music in the world. And to celebrate their music, they've been holding a song festival every 5 years since 1869. Now, not surprising, and as we might know if we remember our history and our present, part of the aim of the Soviet Union was to turn everything they conquered into Russian things. So native histories, culture, language, even music was banned, taken over by Russian things. The song festival called Lalapudu was excised of Estonian songs and filled with Russian propaganda singing. Now this went on from 1945 to the 100th anniversary of the festival, when they allowed one Estonian song, a song whose lyrics were taken from a poem central to their identity. Some of its words were, "My fatherland, this is the land that I love." It was sung to over 100,000 people who gathered in Estonia. It was composed by a beloved Estonian musician. In that one moment, the Estonians heard the beauty contrasted against the militaristic starkness of the Russian program. They heard glimpses of their native heritage, their language, their melodies, their music. Because of the beauty of this one song, not just because the loveliness, and it is lovely, but the hope intrinsic in that beauty, Estonians remembered who they were and whose they were. Slowly, they reclaimed the beauty of their identity. And once Gorbachev loosened free speech regulations in the late 1980s, Estonians spoke out and began fighting for their freedom. But more, they didn't just speak out, they sang out. Everywhere they greeted Russian troops with a smile and a song. They sang to these soldiers, these people meant to destroy them with tanks and guns. And the soldiers too would sense the beauty of these songs, these words, these people. And over again, there would be no bloodshed. In 1991, they were the first of the Soviet nations to become independent. Today, as another former Soviet country is battling against the presumption of the Russian right to ownership, we see again that amidst the fighting and destruction and war crimes being penetrated against the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainians are finding ways to hold on to their identity, their images and songs. Many of them come through as TikTok collaborations or Instagram posts, but still, we see the beauty of this country and these people, and our compassion extends to them. This came into stark focus last May at the Eurovision Song Contest. Now, for the uninitiated, Eurovision, heading for its 57th year, is an annual contest where European nations bring their best songs, as chosen by each country, to compete on the world stage. Over the years, winners have highlighted the best of each nation's culture, or their best songwriters. With something spectacularly over-the-top music, they have costumes and performances. The Eurovision finalists receive two combined scores, the jury score from each nation and the combined public score, each weighing 50%. Last year, just a few months into the invasion into Ukraine, some great songs were in the final, including a song from the UK that easily won the jury score. Ukraine's song, it was good and it was in the top 10, but it wasn't a jury favorite. And then the public came in with a record-smashing 95% of the public vote. This song, played by the Kalesh Orchestra with its costumes and its instruments, was written about the composer's mother. Oh, I love that. Not a national anthem of any sort, but that his mother, Stefania. Beyond this song, which was a fairly hard rocking song with touches of Ukrainian beauty, people sensed the beauty that this group was reminding the world of. That despite the war, despite the horrific nature of this invasion, there was still beauty worth fighting for. And the people responded. And then the band members went back to Ukraine to redon their uniforms and go back to fighting the Russians. And now that song, It's a Rock Lullaby to a Mother, has become a symbol of hope for the people of Ukraine. A song that reminds everybody that despite the war still raging around them, love and hope and beauty still exist. A sense of beauty doesn't mean the hard work is done. It means the hard work is worth doing. It means the hard work isn't in vain. Remember what the poet David Whyte says? Beauty is an achieved state of both deep attention and self-forgetting. The self-forgetting of seeing, hearing, smelling, or touching that erases our separation, our distance, our fear of the other. Beauty invites us through entrancement to that fearful frontier between what we think makes us and what we think makes the world. So bringing beauty, finding beauty, sensing those moments of beauty matters. If we are to actually draw the circle of love wide, if we are to actually build the beloved community, if we are to build a new way, we have to continue to exercise and hone our sense of beauty, because that's what will win in the end. May it be so. We're going to have our second hymn now. We've not sung it before. It's number 1017, Building a New Way. So Michael is going to play through it just once so you get the sense of the tune. When we have time at the end of a service, we like to include a time for reflection or for your questions or comments. And since we spoke of beauty in ways I hadn't even thought of before, Reverend Kimberly led us to, I thought something we could discuss today would be, how has beauty inspired you to action? We take it with us into the world. Any examples? John?
You saw my hesitation. I've been going to El Salvador for about 20 years now, off and on. And there's the sense of smell, I think, really initiates the way I feel about that country. But the sense of it and the beauty of that country, there's a lot of those senses you were speaking of that initiate that sort of, it's a combination of the taste, the smell, the feel, there's a beauty to it. And I have gotten involved in helping with specifically an NGO that works down there. And so I guess you could say my feel for that country has initiated some action on my part, and it's been what I think. But then I think about, I can really feel that whole country in so many ways and the beauty of it. And maybe this country is too damn big, but I have trouble getting all that sense of beauty of this country. I mean, there's definitely so many aspects of it, but as a whole, maybe it's just because it's so big. Anyway.
And diverse.
And diverse. Yeah, that is true, because in El Salvador, it's not nearly as diverse. You have your campesinos, and then you have your elites. And that's always been a tension down there, obviously. But, and that has a lot to do with why we try to help the people down there.
Elites need your help.
Yeah.
Yes. Talking about beauty, I was thinking about visual beauty, and it also extends to other areas. Symmetry is maybe the basis, somewhat basic, but pure symmetry is boring. And they say when you take a picture, never put your subject right in the middle. You put something that has balance. It says variety. You think about marriage. Marriage is a wonderful thing, male and female. It's normal. We can find most beauty in it. But then there's other beauties in relationships. So it's not symmetry. It's a wider balance. And when you go to another country, it's not home. There's a variety. It has to show variety. There's other forms. Symmetry is not. It becomes boring when it's just symmetry. It has to have a break in symmetry.
Has beauty inspired you to any particular action?
Well, I'm doing photo albums, but
Well, your flowers.
and flowers and so forth. And I have been working on. I put a little anecdote in here. I started looking at photo albums. Mother's photo album we had downstairs was falling apart, so I started putting it back together again. There in 1937, all over the place, main pictures of a baby. But then I heard these stories. Now, this is also the beauty of the tales we've heard throughout our life. Mother, they told the story about my father was going to see this girl, Libby Ryan. My mother's mother, my grandmother, worked in an orchard with him. She said, "Why don't you come by and see my daughter sometime?" but he wasn't going to. He was too brave to stand stone. Stopped seeing my mother. Didn't know who she was coming, so she was making the house beautiful by cleaning it up. She herself was the opposite. She was unbeautiful because she was dirty, filthy, and she saw him coming, so she crawled across the floor. So hoping that he wouldn't see her, and he did. So the first time my father saw my mother, she was filthy and dirty across the floor to get away from him. So then they went over to see this Libby Ryan. I heard this name all my life. My father found she was 13, and he wasn't going to date her, but his two older brothers did. And but I saw this, or heard this. I found, when I did her album, 3 pictures of Libby Ryan. It's kind of like a ghost out of the past, a pleasant ghost.
Your father obviously saw beauty in your mom, and it wasn't that traditional. Yeah.
Even dirty and filthy crawling across the floor.
Exactly. Where has the idea of beauty taken you, brought you to some action of some kind?
So some of you know that I've been part of Kent County all my life, but as an Army brat, just came back and left. But the family farm that I built on, which is no longer in my family, but I have my 2 acres, it has a beautiful view. And this view is inspirational to me every day because it changes hour to hour, day to day. We had some friends, some young friends come over, and they said, "Don't you ever get bored looking out the window?" And I said, I can't imagine a moment that I would be bored. So I built my house here.
And we're glad you did. Anyone else? We have time for maybe one more?
You know, I was thinking on my way over here, our windshield in the front of our vehicles is open and wide. And then we have this little mirror to show us what we've missed. And I started thinking about the beauty of everything as I was driving. You know, it didn't matter what it was, I could find some beauty in everything I looked at through my windshield, knowing it was only that time I was going to see it the way I saw it. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to see. And if we all just took 2 minutes a day and stopped and looked around at the beauty, not the negativeness, but just the beauty of being on this planet, I think it would be great.
Thank you. And now we have a couple closing words. They're by Joel Miller. He says, "Let our lives be a prayer that waters dry souls, that mends broken hearts, that refuses to be terrorized, that seeks this world's beauty and carries us through its storms." Please join me as I extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. To be praised by only one voice. Let us each have the courage to add our own voices to this hymn of gratitude. Have a wonderful week, and please join us for coffee and fellowship.